Picture this. You're living in a bustling city surrounded by the hum of technology. Suddenly everything stops. The power is out, the internet is down, and you're disconnected from the world. What happens next? Imagine the shock of being plunged into darkness. The silence replacing the constant buzz of your devices. It's an urban grid-down scenario, a situation that's more probable than you might think, and it's the premise of our discussion today. Cities with their dense populations and reliance on technology are particularly vulnerable in these situations. Think about it. The energy that powers your home, the internet that keeps you connected, the banks that hold your money, the stores that provide your food, all of it, gone. It's a scary thought, isn't it? But it's more than just losing the comforts of modern life. The absence of these necessities could lead to societal breakdown, disruptions in law and order, and even threats to personal safety. So why are we talking about this? Because preparation is key. The more prepared you are, the better your chances of not just surviving, but living in a grid-down scenario. But what does being prepared look like? It's not just about having a stash of canned goods or a generator in the basement. It's understanding the challenges you're likely to face, the resources you'll need, and the skills you'll have to develop. It's about learning how to live off the grid, right in the heart of the city. It's about becoming self-reliant, resourceful, and resilient. It's about being ready for whatever comes your way. But don't worry, there's a way to navigate through this. Let's dive into the steps you need to take when the grid goes down. Remember, this isn't about fear. It's about empowerment. It's about taking control of your destiny in a world where the rules have changed. So, are you ready to face the challenge? Let's get started. In a world without the internet, information becomes a precious commodity. That seemingly omnipresent source of all knowledge, the internet, is suddenly gone. Imagine a world where Google, YouTube, and your favorite messaging apps vanish instantly. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? However, this doesn't mean you're left completely in the dark. The key lies in offline survival knowledge. Yes, that's right. We're talking about those printed guides gathering dust on your bookshelf, those downloaded manuals you've stored just in case, and the old-school skill sets that have been passed down through generations. These become your lifelines, your guides to navigating a world without Wi-Fi. Now let's talk about communication. In the absence of the internet, communication between people comes to a standstill, right? Wrong. We forget that before the age of smartphones and social media, people managed to stay connected. And how did they do it? Through radio. Battery-powered radios, to be precise. These become your connection to the outside world, your source of news, your means of reaching out and knowing you're not alone. Like a time traveler, stepping back in time, you'll need to adapt to a world without the internet. You'll need to relearn old ways of doing things, of gathering information, of staying connected. It might seem daunting at first, but remember, our ancestors managed it, so why can't we? In this new world, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better you can adapt, survive, and even thrive. So dust off those old books, charge up that battery-powered radio, and brush up on your old-school skills. Because in a world without the internet, these are the tools that will keep you informed, connected, and ahead of the game. The key is to adapt and utilize old-school methods of communication and information gathering. Because when the grid goes down, it's not about what you've lost, but about what you still have and how you can use it to survive. When banking systems fail, your money becomes useless. Picture this. You're standing in front of an ATM, debit card in hand, but the machine is as lifeless as a stone. Your credit card? Just a piece of plastic now. The Venmo app on your phone? A hollow shell, devoid of functionality. In a world where banking systems have gone kaput, these once powerful tools of commerce are reduced to mere artifacts of a bygone era. Banks are closed, their vaults sealed like tombs. The digital wealth you've amassed? It's trapped in the ether, inaccessible. So what about cash? Well, for a short while it might still hold some value. If you're lucky enough to have a stash of bills tucked away, you could use them to buy goods and services, at least from those who are willing to accept them. But remember, the value of money is a collective illusion. Once people lose faith in it, once they realize that the paper in their hands is just that, paper, its power evaporates. This brings us to a form of commerce as old as civilization itself, bartering. When traditional money systems fail, bartering rises from the ashes. It's a simple, direct way of doing business. I give you something you need, you give me something I need. In a long-term grid-down scenario, everyday items become valuable commodities for trade. Toilet paper, water filters, batteries, coffee, alcohol, medication. These are the new gold. They're practical, useful, and in high demand. So if you want to be prepared for a world without banks, start thinking about what you can stockpile now. What are the things people can't live without? What are the items that will be in short supply when the grid goes down? Remember, in a world without banking, your wealth isn't measured by the number in your bank account. It's measured by the resources you have at your disposal and your ability to trade them for what you need. In a grid-down scenario, everyday items become valuable commodities for trade. Without gas, escape and resupply become challenging tasks. You see, gas pumps rely on electricity to operate, so when the power goes out, so does the fuel. And if you think electric vehicles are your saving grace, think again. Without a power source to charge them, they're nothing more than dead weight. Generators? Well, they're only as good as the fuel that powers them, and we've already established that's a problem. So, what's the solution? Mobility that doesn't rely on fuel. We're talking about bikes, skateboards, rollerblades, or just good old-fashioned walking. It might not be as fast or as easy, but it's reliable. And in a crisis, reliability is key. Now, let's talk about resupply. Without transportation, getting to and from supply points becomes a Herculean task, and even if you make it, there's no guarantee the supplies you need will be there. That's why it's crucial to stock up on essentials now while you can. But let's face it, even the most prepared among us can run out of supplies. In such cases, you need to get creative, learn to repurpose items. A shopping cart, for example, can be a lifesaver when you need to transport heavy items over long distances. And let's not forget about gear. Knowing how to carry your gear efficiently can make the difference between a successful resupply mission and a failed one. You need to balance weight distribution, ensure easy access to essential items, and protect your gear from the elements. It's a skill that takes practice, but it's worth mastering. So, when the lights go out and the gas pumps run dry, remember, mobility is freedom. The ability to move quickly and efficiently, to adapt to your environment and overcome challenges, that's what will keep you alive. Because in the end, it's not about who has the most supplies, but who can adapt the best to their absence. In times of crisis, the ability to move quickly and efficiently can be a lifesaver. Food becomes scarce as grocery stores empty out. Imagine the scene, the shelves once overflowing with food, now bare. The meat section, the produce aisle, the bakery, all empty. That's the reality in a grid-down scenario. Grocery stores depend on regular deliveries to stay stocked. Without power, those deliveries stop. The stores become empty within 48 hours, if not looted in 24. Most city dwellers only have 3 to 5 days worth of food at home. Then what? Without grocery stores, there's no food replenishment. The situation may seem dire, but don't despair. There's a solution, and it starts with you. Building a deep pantry of shelf-stable foods is crucial. Stock up on canned goods, rice, dried beans, oats, foods that don't spoil easily. These items can sustain you for weeks or even months. But don't just buy and forget. Rotate your stock to keep it fresh. Use what you have and replace it regularly. That way you're always ready. But what if your pantry runs out? That's where urban foraging comes in. Believe it or not, cities are full of edible plants if you know where to look. Parks, vacant lots, even your own backyard can be a source of food. Learn to identify edible plants and how to harvest them safely. It's a skill that could save your life. Start apartment prepping. Use stackable bins, underbed storage, and closet space to store your supplies. Every inch counts when you're preparing for the worst. Remember, in a survival situation, it's not about living comfortably, it's about living, period. And when the grocery stores are empty, your deep pantry and your knowledge of urban foraging can mean the difference between starvation and sustenance. In a survival situation, a well-stocked pantry and knowledge of urban foraging can mean the difference between starvation and sustenance. Without refrigeration, food spoils quickly. This is a fact we often overlook in our modern, electricity-fueled lives. But imagine a world where your refrigerator is just a giant cooler, a silent, powerless box. This is the reality when the grid goes down. In a situation like this, perishable foods become a ticking time bomb. Dairy products, meats, fruits, vegetables, leftovers, these all start to spoil within hours of losing refrigeration. That's why it's essential to use these perishables first. Cook them, eat them, share them with neighbors if you can. Your goal is to waste as little as possible. Once perishables are gone, it's time to switch to your non-perishables. Canned goods, dry pasta, rice, and beans, but what about the food you can't eat immediately? It's not like we can eat an entire fridge's worth of food in a day. This is where traditional food preservation methods come into play. These are the techniques our ancestors used long before the invention of the refrigerator. and they're about to become your new best friends. Consider the humble cooler. It's not as efficient as a fridge, but with a good supply of ice it can keep perishables cool for a few days. Solar-powered fridges are another option if you've planned ahead and have access to one. And don't discount the power of a DIY evaporation cooler, a simple device that uses the principle of evaporative cooling to keep food fresh. Then there's preserving food the old-fashioned way. Salt, vinegar, smoke, dehydration. These methods have stood the test of time for a reason. They remove the elements that bacteria need to grow, slowing down the spoilage process. And let's not forget canning and pickling, which can extend the life of your fruits and vegetables for months, even years. In a world without refrigeration, traditional food preservation methods become essential. They may seem archaic, even unnecessary in our modern world. But when the grid goes down, they could be the difference between having food to eat and going hungry. Cooking becomes a luxury without electricity. Those convenient electric stoves and microwaves, they're about as useful as a chocolate teapot when the grid goes down. But we all need to eat, right? So, how do we prepare food without our usual kitchen gadgets? Well, the first thing to remember is that indoor fires are a no-go. Sure, they can provide warmth and a means to cook, but without proper ventilation, they're a one-way ticket to carbon monoxide poisoning. And that's not a journey any of us want to take. So what are the safer alternatives? Well, you'll be glad to know there are several options. Butane or alcohol stoves are a great choice. They're portable, easy to use, and don't produce harmful fumes. But remember, you'll need to stock up on fuel now because it'll vanish faster than cookies at a kid's party when the grid goes down. Rocket stoves are another good option, especially for those who have a balcony or a small outdoor space. These clever little contraptions are super efficient, using less fuel than a traditional stove and producing a high heat output. Just remember to use them outdoors to avoid any risk of carbon monoxide buildup. And then there's the solar oven. It might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually a very practical, grid-down cooking solution. As the name suggests, it uses the power of the sun to cook food, making it an excellent renewable option. But of course, it's not much use on a cloudy day, so it's good to have a backup plan. And let's not forget about raw diets. Many foods can be eaten raw or require minimal preparation. Think fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. They're nutritious, require no cooking, and are a good way to conserve fuel. Adapting to new cooking methods can help you stay nourished and safe. Remember, survival isn't about clinging to what we're used to. It's about adapting, overcoming, and making the best of the situation we find ourselves in. Without air conditioning, cities can turn into dangerous heat traps. This is a stark reality when the grid goes down in the heat of summer. The concrete and asphalt of urban environments absorb and radiate heat, turning our homes into sweltering ovens. The result? A heightened risk of heat stroke, a serious and potentially life-threatening condition. So how do you keep cool when the mercury is rising and there's no power to run your trusty air conditioning? The good news is we have some practical, low-tech solutions that can help you beat the heat. First and foremost, block out the sun. Direct sunlight streaming into your home can significantly increase the indoor temperature. Use thick curtains, foil, or even cardboard to cover your windows and keep the sun's rays at bay. This simple action can make a big difference to the temperature inside your home. Next, consider where you're sleeping. Heat rises, so the upper floors of your home can become unbearably hot. If possible, move to lower floors or even the basement during the hottest parts of the day and night. Cooling your body directly can also be effective. Use wet cloths to cool down your skin. You can also create your own breeze with a hand fan or a battery-powered fan. But be mindful, batteries are a limited resource, so use them sparingly. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, stay hydrated. In high temperatures, your body will lose water rapidly through sweating. This can lead to dehydration, which only exacerbates the effects of heat. So, store plenty of water and make sure you're drinking enough. Also, consider storing electrolytes, which can help replenish vital minerals lost through sweating. These strategies may seem simple, but they can be life-saving when the grid goes down and the summer heat sets in. Remember, it's not just about staying comfortable, it's about staying safe. Remember, staying cool and hydrated is crucial in a heat wave. Don't underestimate the power of these simple, low-tech solutions to help you survive when the grid goes down. Without heating, hypothermia becomes a real threat. Imagine, it's the middle of winter, the temperature is plummeting, and you're stuck in your urban apartment with no heat. It's a situation that can quickly turn from inconvenient to life-threatening. In a grid-down scenario, apartments can lose heat astonishingly fast. Buildings designed for modern living are not built to retain heat without the constant supply of power. As the cold creeps in, hypothermia becomes a very real possibility. That's why it's essential to know what you can do to stay warm. One of the first things you can do is to insulate your home. Simple measures can make a significant difference. Stuff towels, plastic, or blankets around windows and doors to prevent drafts. Every bit of warmth you can keep inside your home can help stave off the cold. Another smart strategy is to heat only one room. By focusing your efforts on a single space, you can create a warm room to retreat to when temperatures drop. If possible, use a tent indoors to trap body heat. This might sound odd, but a small space can be heated more effectively with body heat than a large one. Layering your clothing is another simple yet effective method to retain body heat. Think thermal underwear, multiple shirts, sweaters, and jackets. Don't forget your head, hands, and feet. These extremities are particularly prone to heat loss. Finally, consider safe heat sources. Propane or kerosene heaters can provide warmth, but they must be used with caution. They need proper ventilation to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning, and never leave them unattended. It's a bleak picture, no doubt. But the reality is, if the grid goes down in winter, keeping warm becomes a survival priority. Hypothermia can set in quickly and without much warning, but with the right knowledge and preparation, you can keep yourself and your loved ones safe. Keeping warm and avoiding hypothermia is vital in a grid-down winter. Water access can fail within a day or two. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? City water systems rely heavily on electric pumps, and without power, they simply can't function. This means water, that essential component of life, could become scarce in just 24 to 48 hours. So, what's the plan? Well, you need to act swiftly as soon as the power goes out. Fill up bathtubs, sinks, containers, anything that can hold water. You might not need it immediately, but you'll be grateful for it later. Additionally, consider your water storage. Aim to keep at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. That's enough for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. And if you can store more, do it. Remember, water is life. Ensuring you have enough of it can make or break your survival. Surviving in an urban environment when the grid goes down can be challenging, but it's not impossible. Whether it's a natural disaster, a cyber attack, or a financial collapse, the modern conveniences we've come to rely on can disappear in an instant. Yet, with a bit of forethought, some practical skills, and a willingness to adapt, you can turn a dire situation into a manageable one. We've covered a lot of ground in this guide. We've talked about the importance of having offline survival knowledge and the value of battery-powered radios when the internet goes down. We've discussed the reality of a world without banking, where cash may only be useful for a short time and bartering becomes a critical skill. We've examined the challenges of a city without gas, where mobility is reduced to bikes, walking, and carts, and the need to carry gear efficiently becomes paramount. We've also looked at the stark reality of grocery stores running out of food, the importance of having a deep pantry of shelf-stable foods, and the potential of urban foraging. We've delved into the issues of food storage without refrigeration, and the old ways of preserving food through salt, vinegar, smoke, and dehydration. We've considered the difficulties of cooking without electricity, and the safer alternatives of butane or alcohol stoves, rocket stoves, or solar ovens. We've explored the risks of heat stroke in an urban heat trap and the simple cooling solutions of blocking sunlight, sleeping on lower floors, and staying hydrated. We've also considered the dangers of hypothermia in winter and the steps you can take to stay warm, like insulating windows and doors, heating only one room, and layering clothing. And finally, we've highlighted the fragility of water access in a city, the immediate actions to take when power goes out, and the importance of water storage. Remember, these are not insurmountable challenges, they are simply obstacles to navigate. With preparation, adaptability, and a good dose of self-reliance, you can weather the storm when the grid goes down. Remember, knowledge is power, and being prepared can make all the difference when the grid goes down.